introduced me. "Thank you," I said, smiling broadly. "Thank you, thank you." Today I walked across the stage in the New York Hilton Midtown Ballroom. Bill Clinton and New York Congressman Charles Rangel stood beside me. Greeting the audience felt as familiar as being home. But what comes now, I thought, is the literal beginning of the end. My family and friends were there, but not to celebrate with me. They were there to comfort me. It was a political wake. The media had come to record my public demise. The applause for a job half completed sounded like the ersatz enthusiasm parents gin up for their child's last-ranked team as its players are awarded medals for participation. I was dropping out of the primary race a week before the votes would be cast. I had failed. Until now, I'd been on the upswing. I ran my first political campaign at age 24 and founded the nation's largest nonprofit organization to help the homeless before I turned 30. Then I became Assistant Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, an appointment that scaled up my model for addressing homelessness to the national level. At age 39, I was one of the youngest cabinet members in U.S. history appointed by Bill Clinton. Being Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development was a hands-on job, and highly visible. I traveled with the President on Air Force One as he led an effort during a time of prosperity to put poverty back on the front burner, to shine a light on places left behind in the new economy. I also set out to help save an agency Republicans had written off and at times had tried to abolish. As a cabinet secretary, I represented the United States on trips to South Africa, China, and Mexico. I met with Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat to talk about creating economic and community development programs to advance the peace process. My wife Carrie and I joined the first family for movie nights in the White House Theater, and occasionally spent a weekend with the President and First Lady at Camp David. On the much more formal side of life in Washington, D.C., we were the Clintons' invited guests at a number of private and state dinners. I was also close to Vice President Al Gore. I shared his vision of making government leaner and more efficient. I was mentioned as one of the possible running mates for the 2000 presidential election. My career ascended like a dot-com stock in the early years of the internet bubble. It crashed just as hard. Now, at 44, I was standing before 50 friends, family members, and supporters, and the media, defeated and exhausted. I knew going into the gubernatorial race that politics was a tough game. I'd learned that basic truth not during bad times, but during one of the best. In 1982, when my father was sworn in as the 52nd governor of the state of New York. We arrived at the executive mansion in Albany, thrilled and a little overwhelmed. The 4-story mansion, then 125 years old, whose architectural style the New Yorker once described as Hudson River helter-skelter, was considerably grander than our family home in Queens. The staff lined up to welcome us. I stood in the wide front hall. Looking up, I saw the outgoing governor, Hugh Carey, coming down the stairs. He was carrying 2 awkwardly large cardboard boxes. His steps were uncertain. He was leaning to the side, trying to see around the boxes so he wouldn't trip. I didn't know what to do. 2 state workers were walking up the staircase. Oh, good, I thought. They're going to help him. They walked right past him. I thought to myself, boy, when it's over, and never allowed myself to forget that lesson. That's how I felt now, standing behind the poster from my now-defunct campaign in front of people who had put their faith and often their money into my race. I was achingly aware of the similarities between my father's first campaign in 1982 and this one of mine 20 years later. We both fought the Democratic Party machine. We both ran against the political boss's favored candidate. We both believed that we were the best person to lead the state of New York. But the differences were painful. My father had won his Democratic primary and bested his Republican opponent in the general election. I, on the other hand, had failed in trying to persuade New Yorkers that I, and not my opponent, Carl McCall, should carry the Democratic banner in the November 2002 election. Instead, I'd come to be viewed as an arrogant upstart whose campaign lurched